A warm welcome. This is Stu's Wrestling Podcast, episode 176, and we are on the Sport Social Network, which is the biggest European sports podcast network going. So thank you to them guys for being so supportive of the show, and they've helped me with so many things. But my guest today is former WWE referee of 22 years. It's Mr. Jimmy Korderas, also the host of Reffin It Up Podcast with Brian Hebnaler. My guest today on Stu's Wrestling Podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Stu. That's awesome. And I thank you for wearing the Toronto Maple Leafs hat. I appreciate that as well, too.
You spotted that. Tyson Fury spotted that when I met him. He called me Toronto. He was watching me in the queue, he was, and he spotted the cap. So, yeah, and I'm glad you spotted the cap, Jimmy.
No, I appreciate it. Shout out to my Maple Leafs. Hopefully this year, as one of the few people who is still alive the last time they won the Stanley Cup, I'm hoping sooner than later.
Fingers crossed for you, Jimmy. Fingers crossed. Hopefully they can bring it home. Absolutely. Jimmy, I'd like to speak about some more current stuff to you, actually. You were at WrestleMania. You were in Philly. How was it? I've got some photos that I'm going to bring in that I've taken from Facebook. But yeah, how was Philly, man? How was it being back with the guys and seeing everybody?
It was absolutely awesome. First of all, I want to thank the Busted Open guys, Dave LaGreca and everybody that worked at Busted Open. They invited us over. They made us feel welcome. They made us feel at home. They actually made us feel like part of the family, and that was cool. And the other thing is, getting to reconnect with some old friends who you otherwise don't get to see very often. I can go through a list of names, but man, it was just incredible. It's almost impossible to explain the reconnection. You haven't seen everybody for a while. Then when you see each other, there's this warm feeling that comes over you. Everybody gets together. There's the big embrace and all that sort of stuff. It's incredible. I know it's cliche. It sounds very cliche to say that this is your road family, but they really were your road family for all those years. And I always say this too. For all the years that they say we sacrificed on the road doing 250, 300 days a year, the people who make the biggest sacrifice is your family. And especially like my wife, who gave up a lot of time for us to be together so I could live my dream. So I appreciate them more than anybody.
That's nice. That's nice, man. Oh, man. I've got a photo, actually, to pop up here from WrestleMania weekend.
Oh, my old golf buddy, JBL. That's awesome.
There he is, man. How was it seeing John? How was he?
It was really cool. I ran into him at the WrestleMania World there at the convention center, and he was busy signing autographs, and I didn't want to interrupt. So, and I sort of kind of like waved from the side, "Hey, John, how are you?" And he came over, he said, "Oh, come on up here. Let's, whatever." And so I went up to go see him, and we talked, and I go, "But you've got a lineup of people waiting for they could wait. What the heck?" So that actually made me feel kind of good.
I met him with Jerry Lawler a few years ago. They were both for Access together on the same table. So yeah, and right. I have actually met him. I met him in Liverpool across from the Hilton Hotel when they were there. But he was busy. So it was a brief hello. He'd been in the gym and he came back. So
right.
Always respectful.
Yeah, that's the misconception with him. I know he gets apparently on the internet a bad reputation, but he's a good dude. He is really, really a good dude. And when he did have the occasional day off when we were on the road, he would always look for a golf course for us to go, play around the golf. I used to play a little more golf than I do now, but he was a guy. Him, myself, Booker, and Larry Heck, who was a trainer. We were the core four who'd like to go out on golf excursions every once in a while.
One hell of a crew there on the golf course, I tell you. That's amazing. No, good times. Also, I like this photo as well. Now, I've been on your personal Facebook, obviously. There you are with Punk. A man that is obviously in the news. He's in the news. At the end of the day, Jimmy, he spoke his mind when he was on Errol Hawani's MMA Hour. What do you think about it? I know you've been quite vocal about what AEW have done. It reeks to me like just jealousy that how well WWE did over WrestleMania weekend.
Right. I think the misconception here is people are thinking I'm choosing sides here. And yes, I am friends with CM Punk. I know him. I've always got along with him. I've never had a problem with him. But then again, I wasn't a talent who was lobbying for a position on the card. I was the referee. So, I'm in the background, and I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine. And as far as the interview with Ariel Helwani goes, CM Punk is a guy who doesn't sugarcoat anything. He's going to tell it the way it is, the way he sees it, at least. And going back to the footage that I saw, I didn't see anything in the footage that would discredit anything he said.
No.
It happened exactly the way he described it. Now, I know people are saying, well, he attacked him, all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, I know people are going to say, what are you talking about? Jack Perry got off easy, because back in the day, if you disrespect a veteran in the locker room, you got your butt whipped big time. And it was not to say that it was an accepted practice, but it happened. And I've seen some brawls in the past. I was there for Brett and Sean. I was in Hartford that day. I saw some other ones with some other guys, and it's not pretty. That one got broken up very quickly. It was done. It was over with. Whoever, you can point fingers all you want, but that video without any audio and without any backstory, knowing what happened prior to this interaction, you can't make a judgment. You can't point fingers and say he's right, he's wrong. And the other little things, Tony Khan saying he was in fear for his life, I mean, that's a bit of a stretch to say the least. So what came out of it for me is I didn't think it was the right platform for them to do it. You know, if Tony Khan wanted to give his side of the story and say what he wanted to say, go on. Busted Open is a wide open podcast. They're even inviting him on. Say, come back and tell us your side of the story. You know, and he didn't do that. He chose to waste valuable TV time on something that happened 8 months ago that doesn't advance anything on their television program. They took valuable TV time away from guys that are very good that they could, display on their TV, and aren't going to make a penny off of this. And it's a business at the end of the day. And like you said, it felt very petty. It felt very, I wouldn't say jealous. It felt like they were annoyed, like a teenager who got, his feelings hurt. That's the thing. It didn't benefit them one bit. And I know people are going to say, well, they bumped the ratings up a little bit, but who drew that rating? Was it them or was it CM Punk? I hope that all made sense on my rambling there.
Of course, of course. I want you know how it is. You were in the business. You understand it. You understand. Like you said, you've seen stuff previously. Was not handled in the correct manner. And I'll be honest with you. Since Cody's gone, I think Cody was the go-between with talent, where Tony Khan didn't need to get involved. Maybe as such, they've lost that. Cody, the Bucks maybe should be doing it a bit more. He's running the promotion like a fan. I feel like I'm shitting on him. I like Tony as a person. I just think it's all over the place. Too many talents on the roster, Jimmy. I don't know what you think about that.
No, the problem is saying too many talents is one way to put it, but it's just that there's not enough TV time to display all these talents. And these talents need a story. At the end of the day, you can have the greatest in-ring performers in the world, and they do have some of the greatest in-ring performers around. But unless there's a story involved around it, as opposed to putting two guys together saying, oh, this would be a great matchup for a one-off. Where does this help me in the future? Storytelling is what this business is about, has always been about. Long-term storytelling is what draws people in. Your face makes the money, not a twisting, burning 450 Hammer Phoenix splash. I mean, those are pretty to look at, but you got to incorporate them in the right place.
It's gone downwards since Wembley for me. And take the backstage stuff out of it for a minute here. That's been put to the forefront. You would think off the back of doing Wembley, that would have been them going further and further up on an upward trajectory. That's not been the case. Running a pay-per-view the following week in Chicago, I didn't understand that. It was we didn't know what matches were going to be happening leading into like the week of the event. For Wembley, for the biggest show ever. As a show, it wasn't bad. It had good stuff. Right. I just think it was all very last minute, putting a card of that magnitude together. It's the biggest show they've done to date. And I'm going back a bit. I'm going back 8 months here, Jimmy. I don't think it's been right since then. I've got to be honest with you.
I think, like you said, well, Cody was in the locker room at the time, and he was more or less kind of like, although he was part of the office, so to speak, he was also a locker room leader. And that's what's been lacking, I think, a little bit right now. And yes, the Bucks are there, but it's not the same with them. Edge the other week came out there and gave that great speech at the beginning of Raw. Loved it. You know, of course, I'm a little biased because Edge is a friend of mine. So, but still, he made great points. Let's just be fans. He mentioned the other guys. He mentioned a bunch of other promotions and stuff like that, and it made a lot of sense. All the stuff that he said. But then they did this with the video and all that stuff. It was almost like a big middle finger to him, because it felt like what he said on that Dynamite. They flushed it down the toilet and stuck 2 middle fingers up at the fans. But unfortunately, that niche audience that buys into everything they do, because apparently to some, they can do no wrong. And trust me, every company can use a little fixing and tweaking here and there. They need some. And the last couple of weeks, again, I'm rambling. Here we go. The last couple of weeks before that last week's Dynamite, they were starting to turn a corner. They started to take a trajectory in a positive direction, in my opinion. They started telling some stories. They started involving like the Swerve and Samoa Joe stuff. Loving that. You know, there was conscious effort to tell some stories, and then again flushed it down the toilet by doing this stuff that felt so petty. Don't just ignore them. Focus on the guys you got. Take care of your own house, and everything will fall into place. Because, you know, here we got another option for people who love pro wrestling. If you like this promotion, that's fine. If you like it, cool. But you don't have to crap on the other guys.
No.
You know what I mean? There's a difference between critiquing and being hateful. And unfortunately, there's an audience out there who's very hateful and anti these guys, whatever the 3 letters are that precede their company name.
Absolutely. Jimmy, we've got some comments here, so I'll read them out to you. We have got some comments in the live. Hey all, Lewis Young, he's from Falkirk in Scotland. He's actually training in wrestling, so he's having a go at the wrestling. So good on you. And yeah, there's Lewis.
One quick piece of advice to Lewis: keep learning, always be a sponge.
I know you'll take that.
And don't forget to ask questions. Always ask questions.
And we've got Jack Reynolds, who's down south in England. I'm in Wales. But yeah, he's, hey guys, hope all is well. And they run a fantastic group, Pro Wrestling Elite Fandom, Jimmy. Fantastic group. Really, really good. Nice. No, none of this toxic IWC stuff going on, because if anybody starts that, they're kicked out the group.
Nice.
You know, it's refreshing. It's refreshing. You can have an opinion. You can have an opinion in there and not get lambasted.
What a shock having a different opinion and respectfully disagreeing.
Yes. Yeah, that's archaic now. That you know, my word, you can't, you're not allowed to. Matthew Barnett, friend of mine. Hey Jimmy, it's Matthew Barnett from All Decades Classic Pro Wrestling here in England. So yeah, Matthew.
Yep. Shout out to Matthew. He reached out to me as well. Good dude. And just saying hello. Hey.
And one more before we get back to you. What was your favorite match that you refereed from Lewis?
I've been blessed to referee some really great matches with some really great talent, but the granddaddy of them all, WrestleMania is it. WrestleMania 24, Edge and Undertaker in the main event of WrestleMania. It doesn't get any bigger than that. And, you know, to be actually requested by both Adam and Taker to referee that match made it even more special, and actually made it a little more anxiety for me, because I'm like, oh boy, I want to perform for these guys. I want to be there for these guys, because it's not about me. As you've probably heard me say many times, the referee is there to help the talent tell their story and not be the story. So quick story here, you know, after the match, I went to the back and I ran into one of my idols, Ricky Steamboat. And before I could even say anything to him, because I always ask questions, I said, comes up to me and says, Jimmy, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm great, man. I'm pumped. He says, that boot looked great. It looked like he took your head off. I said, awesome. I said, how was the rest of the match? Anything you saw there? He says, to be honest with you, I didn't notice you because I was so enthralled in the story they were telling in the match. I didn't notice you. And I said, thank you, Ricky. That was the best compliment you can give me. And when I say that, people go, what are you talking about? I said, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm not supposed to be visible until I need to be, you know? And that was a great compliment. And Ricky is always a great guy. I could always go to for advice and just say, is there something you noticed in the match I could have done differently? Or you know, what do you think worked better or stuff like that?
That was my first WrestleMania, by the way, Jimmy. So I was there. I was there for WrestleMania. I was there for WrestleMania 24.
With with that wonderful run by Charles Robinson down the ramp. It was just a classic. Nobody else could have done it because he ran down that ramp, slid under that bottom rope right into perfect position for that false finish. It was beautiful.
Amazing. I just think it's one of that. I bet it was one of those pinch yourself moments for that one because take a streak. Edge was so hot for so many years, wasn't he? He was incredible. He was incredible. Do you know what?
Excuse me. I have to take a sip of my coffee right now.
Of course. That's fine. We can segue into the next topic that I'd like to speak on. Oh yes. Reffin rant. Sorry.
Hey, I've always learned. Make sure you get your cheap plugs in.
You gotta do that. And I was slow on the uptake there, wasn't I? I didn't yet. Reffin rant. You do it pretty much every day. Fantastic. Like you were saying, you made light to Edge's promo a couple of weeks ago and how much you liked it on the Reffin rant.
Yes.
Fantastic. Fast-paced. Really good in your delivery. I love the Reffin rant. I really do.
Thank you. It's meant to be fun. And, it's not meant to be, you guys. Occasionally it does when I was talking about the video, but that was a different story. That was, again, my honest feelings. And that's what you're going to get on my Reffin rants.
I'm segueing perfectly here. You do a podcast with former referee, WWE referee should say, Brian Hebnaler, the Reffin It Up Podcast. So yeah, Jimmy, like well over 100 episodes now for you guys. And I know you've got a special guest on this week who you need to plug as well.
Oh, yes. We've got WWE Hall of Famer, the former GM of SmackDown, my former GM, Teddy Long. Holla, playa. Yeah, Teddy's one of my favorite people. He's always upbeat. He's always a good dude. And we're going to have some fun. And what we do on the Reffin It Up podcast is we don't look for stuff, to play gotcha, kind of like you. We just have fun, tell stories, reminisce about the old times, and hopefully laugh a little bit.
It's really good that I've tuned into several episodes now. And yeah, great that you guys are back together after working, together for so many years. We're very good friends. So it's good, man. It's good. And I just love wrestling podcasts, period. But you guys do such a great job. And thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think we bring a different, unique perspective because, you have a lot of talent out there doing podcasts, a lot of wrestlers and journalists and that sort of thing. But there's really nobody out there other than maybe Mike Chioda, from the referee standpoint, that does a podcast. But this is not a shot at Mike. I love Mike. He's one of my boys, good brother in stripes. But his is more of an answer questions thing where we kind of take our time and break things down and talk about what happened during the week and also bring old buddies on and just, like I said, tell stories, have fun.
It's great. I bet it's great, reminiscing about the times because just like the amount of days you guys were on the road, man. I mean, the schedule's pretty heavy now, but like when you were doing it late 80s into the amount of time you did, and you were saying when being away from family and stuff like that, it's all the stuff that us fans don't realize, that the toll that it must have took on you guys.
Yeah, and for me too, being part of the ring crew as well, most of the guys would fly in the day of the first show. We would have to be there the day before to make sure we were there to set up the ring. So there was an extra day for us, and that's fine. It's part of the job. I'm cool with it. I was fine with it. Unfortunately, again, like I said, it took its toll on the family because you miss so many occasions that you wish you could be there for. And like I said, they sacrifice that time together so that we could live our dream. And I did live my dream for so many years, and I'm grateful.
How was it around that time in the 80s when you were there? You came away from Maple Leaf and stuff like that, and you came into WWE, WWF at the time. Because I loved the late 80s anyway. That's one of my favorite times. Ahead of the Attitude Era, actually, Jimmy. I like the late 80s into the early 90s. But yeah, that time when you were first there, Hogan, Warrior, all them guys, man. How was it to be a part of that boom period?
It was incredible. I don't know how to describe it. It was the boom that started this monster, the machine that we see now as WWE, WWF at the time. And it was, I know it's a dirty word to say his name now, but I'm going to say it. Vince McMahon at the time had a vision. He took a shot and he created the juggernaut you see today. Obviously, someone else has taken over the reins in a Paul Triple H Levesque, and I'm looking forward very much to his era because it looks like he's steering the ship in the right direction. Let's put it that way. But being a part of that, I started with Maple Leaf. Well, Maple Leaf Wrestling actually at the time was bought out by WWE or WWF at the time, so they were technically a part of WWF. And Jack Tunney was the figurehead president of WWF at the time, and he's the one who hired me. And I started off, doing the errand, whatever errands need to be, whatever little things that needed to be done, and then he'd hand me the keys to his Fleetwood Cadillac and say, "Go pick up Andre the Giant at the airport, or go pick up Hulk Hogan at the airport Marriott," or whatever the case may be. And from there, it morphed into Pat Patterson, who's really good. He was, great mind and everything. But he says to Jack one day, he says, "Jack, we've got this kid here, and he's just waiting around during the show for stuff to do. Why don't we use him? Put him to work. Make him a referee." And Jack says to Pat, he says, "Well, do you want to smarten the kid up?" And Pat goes, "Well, he's in the locker room with the boys. I think he kind of knows what's going on." So, use him. So Pat told me, get black sneakers, black pants, a blue shirt, and a black bow tie, and carry it with me at all times. And
Amazing.
That was the start of it.
Amazing. Now, obviously, there's been 2 WrestleManias in your beloved Toronto. So obviously, I'm going to talk about 6 first because it was 1990. Yeah, that I bet that was amazing for yourself, wasn't it?
Oh, it was amazing. Hometown. How could it not get any better than that? And getting to referee a couple of matches there. And but the thing that made me more nervous than anything was before the event even started, because Robert Goulet, who's a famous singer back in the day, was scheduled to sing the Canadian national anthem, but he didn't know the words. So again, Pat Patterson comes up to me and says, "Jimmy, do you know the Canadian national anthem?" I said, "Of course, Pat. I'm from Toronto. We used to do it every day in school in the morning." He says, "Well, come with me." And he takes me over to his dressing room. He says, "Can you teach the words to Robert Goulet?" And I'm thinking, I'm going to teach Robert Goulet the words to the Canadian national anthem. I don't know how well this is going to work out. And I just said, "Pat, just an idea. What if they put the words on the Jumbotron in the Sky Dome?" I will not call it what they call it now. It's always going to be the Sky Dome to me. But why don't they put the words there and he could just read them off there? He said, "Oh, okay, we'll do that. Can you do that?" And he said, "Yeah." And so that's how they did. They had to put the words up there for him to read, because I'm going to teach Robert Goulet how to sing.
You came up with something there, Jimmy, to sort the situation out.
Well, every once in a while, something pops in my head, and it's always not. Never be afraid to present an idea if you think something is good, and do it in a respectful way. Eddie Guerrero always, was always great with that. He says, just a quick little off the cuff thing. I'm refereeing one of his matches one day, and they're going over the match. What do you think here? What do you think there? And he looks over at me. He goes, "What?" And I said, "What do you mean, what?" He says, "You got that look on your face. What?" So I just had an idea. That's all. He says, "Well, what is it?" And so I told him. He says, "That's great. We're going to use it. Never be afraid to present any ideas." And I'm like, okay. With him, it was a special relationship. So, we got along very well. So it was always easy to present ideas to Eddie.
So I was in university when the news came out that he passed. Mm-hmm. Oh man, 38 years old, and you think about it, and he went, man, and everybody loved Eddie. It just came across on screen, just so sad and taken far too soon. And there was still so much more that he had to do in the business, Jimmy.
No, absolutely. And there was a tough day for everybody because everybody loved Eddie, and, again, fortunate because they knew my special relationship with Eddie, that it was actually Hunter who had me referee his match with Chris Benoit that night as a tribute. And that was very special to me.
Another guy, Benoit. I was at a house show in 2003 in Manchester, and it was him and Albert, and the size of Albert, that blew. Oh my God, he was throwing it. He was Germaning Matt Bloom,
Yes.
Benoit, and that match was like mid-card sort of time, and
Mm-hmm.
it was my favorite match on the card. Say what you want about Benoit and what happened, but as in ring, that match was mid-card, and it was the match of the day, match of the night for me. Just the power, the raw power getting Albert over for the Germans.
Yeah, and it always takes two, because people underestimate someone like Matt Bloom and Albert. That's why he's at the Performance Center. That's why he's there, because he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. He could help guide this next generation and try to teach them. Like, everybody talks about wrestling evolving. It's, it always takes the next level. And I just fear that they're trying to evolve it too quickly. Old school and new school can mesh together when done correctly. And again, I've used this analogy 100 times. When the wheel was first invented, it was made of stone. Then they made it out of wood to make it lighter. And then it was rubber. Then it was vulcanized rubber. Then it was run flat tires. The wheel always evolved, but at the end of the day, it's round, because if it's not round, you can't move forward.
At its core. Absolutely. Do you know what? I'd be remiss not to speak about you doing Fight Network. I would say about 10 years ago with John Pollock. I loved the content. I loved it. Was Arthur O'Cal involved in that as well, or have I got that wrong?
No, that was separate. That was two separate things.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, John was with the Fight Network, and we used to do some stuff there. And then the television programs that used to air on the Score, originally on the Score, and then moved to Sportsnet here in Canada, aired all the WWE programming. That's where Arda and O'Cal and I started doing our thing, where it started off as Right After Wrestling on Sirius Radio, believe it or not, after Raws. That's why he called it Right After Wrestling, RAW. He was brilliant at that. And then it morphed into Aftermath, which we did on Sportsnet here in Canada.
Like, obviously coming away from refereeing and then having them opportunities to do something different, presenting and talking, and just, I tuned in so much. We used to get clips and stuff like that over here in the UK. So I loved it. Honestly, now, I mean that hand on heart. It was brilliant what you guys were doing.
Oh, I appreciate that. That means a lot. And John is both John and Arda are awesome at what they do. Arda is now working for ESPN down in the United States now. So, his career has progressed big time from his days as Kyle Edwards.
Yes.
Back in the day. And John has continued, him and Way and all the guys over there at Post Wrestling are doing a great job as well.
So many good outlets out there, for the fans to get their fix.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy, a book that I spoke to you about last week when we had the call, when we briefly chatted last week, setting this one up. But your book, your autobiography, The Free Count, I read it a number of years ago. Absolutely loved it. Brilliant from cover to cover. Just brilliant. And I've read a lot of autobiographies from wrestling, and truly, I so enjoyed reading this. So yeah, having your own book, that just how was that, and putting this together?
Yeah, again, I have to thank my wife for that, because it was her idea originally. Obviously, people like Arda said, "You know what? You've got a lot of stories. You got to tell your story." And I said, but who's going to? That was me. My mentality back then. Who's going to want to read it? He says, "Trust me, people will want to read your story." And so my wife convinced me. She said, "Start sitting down at the computer. Every time a story pops in your head, write it down, and then we'll put it together and make a book out of it." So that's what we did. And we put it out there. We got the publisher, ECW Press of all people, which is nice,
Absolutely.
And I got to thank my good friend Steve Argentero, who used to work at TSN here in Canada. He does wonderful photography work. He took that picture that's on the cover. So I have to give him a big shout out for that. And it was fun putting it together, but trying to remember some of the old stories. But every once in a while, something would make a memory click. And you go, "Oh, got to write that down." And I'm not a great typer. I'm the 2-finger typer guy. I can't do this thing. So it took me a little longer than most people would, but I got it done. And now people are saying, "Yeah, you should write a second book." And who knows? Maybe there's one in the works. I'm not saying yes or no.
There's plenty more. There's going to be plenty more stories from your tenure in pro wrestling. So I look forward to it. If that comes to fruition, If the fans get a second book from Jimmy Korderas, sign me up. I will want to read that. So yeah, hopefully that becomes a thing. Got another question here, Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Another question. Justin Clapper, my good friend from Wisconsin. He's not from Milwaukee. I've made out. I said he was from Milwaukee for ages. He's been a friend for about 4 years. He goes, I'm from northern Wisconsin, Stu. I'm not from Milwaukee. I was like, sorry, I apologize. He says, who did Jimmy grow up watching that made him want to get into the sport? Good question, JC.
There's a lot of them out there because being blessed to live here in Toronto, we got so many wrestling promotions when I was younger to watch on television on the weekends. We got everyone from the old WWF on the local affiliate from Buffalo. We used to get the stations from the U.S. stations from Buffalo because they're so close. And we used to get Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, AWA Wrestling, International Wrestling from Montreal, even All-Star Wrestling from Vancouver, because on Saturday nights, my dad and I would watch Hockey Night in Canada together to watch the Maple Leafs. And afterwards at 10:30 on one of the local affiliates, they would air All-Star Wrestling from Vancouver. So it was nonstop wrestling for me. But when I got a little older, I got to appreciate, like I said, Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood was one of my favorite tag teams of all time. Man, who else was there? Pick them. There's just so many. But for some reason, Ricky Steamboat resonated with me. The ultimate, I hate to put it this way, white meat babyface, but it worked. He was so good. And of course there were heels out there. I liked like Ric Flair when he was a heel at the time, but for me at the time, Ricky Steamboat was the guy.
And questionably the greatest WrestleMania match ever. That's a lot of people's favorites. Chris Jericho included. Chris Jericho, he always states. So yeah, Ricky Steamboat, man, Ricky Steamboat. In fact, JC, thank you for that. Also, Jimmy, because he's from Wisconsin, he was a huge AWA nut himself, was Justin. That was his go-to years ago. So yeah, I know he'll appreciate that answer. Thank you, Jimmy. Thanks for answering that one. And I've got to ask you as well. We're going to have a look at. We're going to go back to WrestleMania, and I've got a photo here of Cody finally getting the title. And just obviously, you were there. Just how good was it last weekend?
It was like a fitting end to a great story, and I thought they booked this brilliantly with the the Bloodline Rules match, which made sense. I almost predicted that there would be the proverbial interference at the start, as opposed to where they placed it in the match, and I think it made more sense doing it the way they did it. Of course, I was predicting some stars to come out, some past superstars to come out. I didn't expect The Undertaker. I almost expected Steve Austin, because that night that Rock beat down Cody outside of the Chicago arena and they were fighting in the rain and he got Cody all bloodied up and they panned over and you saw the side of that tractor trailer backed up into the loading dock. And coincidentally on the side of the tractor trailer were John Cena and Steve Austin. And WWE doesn't do anything or place anything out there by accident. I think that was placed there intentionally for that specific shot. So I was expecting it, but what I loved about it too was they interfered, but they didn't interfere in the match. What they did was they came out and cleared and made it a level playing field, and Cody did it on his own. And then afterwards, having all the guys come out and raising Cody on their shoulders, anointing him as the next one. Absolutely awesome. And I know a lot of people think that Cody's probably going to lose some steam now that he's finished the story, but when one story ends, another one begins. And I think they're on the right path with Cody. You got to take your time now and figure out who's right for the next opponent. Don't rush things.
Unbelievable. Because obviously 39 the year previous, everyone felt that was when it was going to happen, but the build again, him winning the Rumble again, and not many people have run the Rumble twice, just everything. And as you say, Jimmy, there's so many matches they can do now with him as champ. There's fresh matches, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of fresh matches. Look who's out there. I mean, one match I want to see is him and Randy Orton down the line. Not yet. If Randy's ready to turn heel when the time is right, have him and Cody, because Randy's a guy who is just flawless in the ring in everything he does. He is just, in my opinion, underrated in that aspect, where he people, when they talk about the greatest of all time, you talk about a Shawn Michaels, you talk about, Ric Flair's, you talk about all these fabulous talents from the past. But Randy Orton, I think, needs to get his flowers as well.
How about Damian Priest cashing in? I'd like to ask you about that. And just all the kerfuffle
You're right.
outside with Punk involved, carrying on the story with Drew. Just, we haven't had that. I think, what was that? The second cash in at WrestleMania we've ever had. So, yeah, Priest cashing in, doing a CM Punk almost.
Yeah, I loved it.
Or an edge.
Absolutely. I actually loved it. And I'm not afraid to admit when I was wrong, because I kind of thought that it would be a nice time to attempt to cash in, but don't actually cash it in. I didn't want to see the cash in happen. I wanted Drew to win and carry on that title going forward, to have that rivalry with Punk when Punk was ready to return. But thinking now, of course, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback, as they say. Looking back on it, they don't need that championship to keep their rivalry going. And the cash-in was done perfectly. It was executed to a T, and it made perfect sense. And now Drew is all boo-boo faced, and we get that amped up Drew McIntyre, who is knocking it out of the park every week now, whether it's in the ring, on the microphone. Drew McIntyre has found himself. And this is what I'm enjoying about him. I've known Drew for a long time, and seeing this come out of him, I'm so happy for him, because he can only move forward here. And I know people are talking about his contract stuff. Forget that stuff. Just enjoy his work in the ring, because he is hitting not only home runs, he's hitting grand slams every week.
With Clash at the Castle coming in June as well, and it's up in Scotland, so that could be massive for him, of course.
Right.
His home country. And then leading into that, Money in the Bank's in Toronto, isn't it? They're all SmackDown, Money in the Bank, NXT, all on in Toronto. So some huge stuff coming up, Jimmy.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking forward to the crew coming here. Might have to pop in and visit.
I wouldn't blame you either. You've got to. They'll be in close proximity. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an easy 20-minute drive. No big deal.
Easy for you, that. Yeah, no problem at all. Jimmy, now I know you've been asked about this various times on different podcasts, I know, but I'd like to ask you, obviously, that horrible night in May '99 over the edge, and you were in the ring when Owen Hart, the great Owen Hart, fell to his death, Jimmy, and just I can only imagine how that was for you. What a great man he was.
Oh, he was absolutely. When you talk about somebody who no one ever had a bad word to say anything about, Owen was that guy. He was just. He was loved by everyone. He was a guy who brightened up the locker room, and I could only imagine how he brightened up his family. And that was the toughest part, being there in so close proximity to what happened. And I didn't realize at the time, and again, not to make this about me, but how close I was to becoming a very different part of that tragedy. And I didn't realize it till the next day exactly how horrible it could have been for myself as well, because when it happened, I didn't know what was going on. We had a hardcore match right before that incident, and I went to the ring to help clear out some of the debris that was left behind, like pieces of table and stuff like that. And as I was walking by, kicking some stuff out of the ring, I was holding the top rope, and on the screen was the interview Kevin Kelly was doing with Owen as the Blue Blazer. And I was kind of watching that while I was kicking stuff out. And I heard somebody scream. I don't know where. I just heard somebody scream. And then almost immediately after, I felt something brush by me, like the side and my shoulder. And at the same instance, the top rope that I was holding pulled out of my hand and snapped back and jam like my fingers. And I kind of ducked, thinking that the top rope snapped for some reason, because they use real rope in WWE, not the cables with the wrapped in the plastic. So I'm looking around and I go, well, the top rope's intact. It's not the top rope. And I turn and he was there lying in the ring at the corner there where I was near. And he was face up, eyes wide open. And there was like on his forearm, like a gouge, like a wound of some, yeah. And it wasn't oozing, it wasn't bleeding or anything. And I just leaned over. I couldn't put two and two together. You're just confused. And I walked over, I screamed a few times his name, no response at all. And I just freaked out and started yelling for help from anybody. I didn't want to move him. I didn't want to touch him. I didn't want, I didn't know what to do at that time. Never experienced anything like this. And Jerry Lawler got up from the announce table. He came over and medical personnel started running down, and I just backed off and let them do their thing. I didn't want to, and I saw King's face, Lawler's face, as he was walking back to the table, and he had that look on his face like, this isn't good. And he sat back down, and they finally got him on the stretcher, and they were wheeling him back. And I don't know what made me do this. I grabbed his cape and I walked back with it. And then when I got to the back, somebody took the cape from me, and I followed the stretcher out to where the ambulance was and watched them load him in. And I was literally trembling, shaking. I just, didn't know what to make of it. And someone handed me a cigarette. I was a smoker at the time. I quit that, thankfully. But and he just said, Jimmy, sit down, relax, and have a cigarette, relax, calm down. And I was trying to calm down. And John D'Amico, who worked in the production office as well, he came over to me. He says, Jimmy, come on with us. We're going to take you to the hospital and get you checked out. And I said, I'm okay. I just need to calm down. I need to get my head straight and what's going on. And they said, no, they want you to go get checked out. So I went to the hospital, and they checked me out. Everything was fine. They just said, you just need to relax, calm down and stuff like that. And I said, then the nurse came and said, are you with the wrestler that they brought in? I said, yeah, how's he doing? And they said, well, I'm sorry to tell you that he's passed. And that's what I lost it, And I immediately called she was my fiance at the time, Audra. And I told her what happened. And she said, are you okay? Do you want to come home? Do you need me to come there? Whatever. I said, no, stay where you are. I think I need to be here for now. So to this day, I still don't remember driving to St. Louis with John D'Amico. I don't remember the ride at all. It's just a blur. It's a blur. Went to the building in St. Louis the next day, and the first person I ran into was Undertaker, who was our locker room leader. Great man. And he said, Jimmy, are you okay? I said, I think I'm going to be okay. He says, if you need anything, you come to me. You tell me if you need anything. He gave me a big hug, and I walked away. And then I ran into Hunter, and Hunter said the same thing. He said, Jimmy, you need anything? Please, don't hesitate. And I ran to JR, who was head of talent relations. Says, Jimmy, if you want to go home for a little while, if you need some time off, you let me know. And I said, you know what, JR, I think I need to be here with the rest of the guys. I think I need to be here with everybody and get through this together. And then I ran into King Lawler. He says, Jimmy, you okay? I said, I'm going to be okay. I think so. He says, well, sit down. I think I need to tell you something. And when he sat down beside me, he told me that when he was watching the promo on the screen, and he saw about the last 20 feet of Owen's fall, and his first reaction was, oh my God, he's going to fall on Jimmy. And he said he saw him brush by me, and he said, I don't want to put this on you, but if you had been standing a foot closer to the corner, we might not be talking here today. And that's when I lost it again. And he put his arm around me and said, try not to think about that. And then all these things were going through my mind where I was like, I guess for lack of a better term, it's called survivor's guilt, where I felt like I was fortunate not to be a bigger part of that tragedy. But then there's a family that lost a husband, a father, a brother, a son. And I couldn't imagine what they were going through. And I felt guilty for a long time for feeling that I was fortunate, if that makes any kind of sense. You know, it was just tough on everybody, and you know, it was just a difficult time for everybody in that locker room because, like I said, he was beloved by everyone, and it was just surreal. I don't know how many more words I could put onto it, but it was really the hardest day I ever had, in not one of the most hardest days of my life to deal with. And again, thank goodness for the road family, and thank God for my family at home who helped me get through this, because with their support, you know, but never forgotten. It'll never be forgotten. I have my little memorial on the wall there with Eddie and Owen together, you know. So two of my closest friends. And God bless them, but you know, it was tough. It really was.
But thank you, bless you for speaking about that. And yeah, I remember we went to.
Sorry, I lost you there. I'm not hearing you. I can't. I'm sorry. For some reason, I lost your. I'm not hearing you. Nope. Still. Oh, there we go. I think I heard you now.
Can you hear me?
Now I do. Yes.
Yeah. A guy came into school the morning after. He stayed up to watch the pay-per-view, and he said Owen's died. And I got home from school. My cousin had it on VHS, and we watched it. And I can't believe it's 25 years this year. I can't believe how much time's passed. But do you know what? He could have been world champion. He could have been world champion several times, couldn't he? You know, he had so much more. A bit like we were saying about Eddie earlier. They still had so much more to give.
No, he was one of the most talented individuals you will ever find in the ring. Underappreciated. Let's put it that way, because he could do everything. He could be a heel. He could be a babyface. He could do comedy. You know, he was able to do it all. And in ring, flawless, absolutely flawless. He was just amazing.
Jimmy, I'm going to ask, being on the road, who was some of the best? Who were some of the best pranksters on the road? Who was fun? Now we've heard about guys, but from your perspective.
Well, obviously Owen tops that list, because he was able to do some masterful things and just get people, nothing was ever malicious. It was all in good fun. And the greatest rib he ever pulled, in my opinion, was years ago they had that hog pen match between Triple H and Henry Godwin. So the hog pen was all set up and ready to go and all that sort of thing. And the truck arrived to deliver the pigs, the hogs, to the arena. So the guy gets out of the truck and says, "Okay, where do you want these put?" And Owen was right near where the truck is. "Oh, here, follow me. This is where we want them." So he brings a guy, he leads them all down, and they're leading all these pigs into Vince's office. Vince is at the production meeting, so he has no clue. So they put all these pigs in his office. And he comes back from his production meeting. He opens the door. He walks in. Not even 30 seconds later, he comes out screaming, "Owen!" He knew right away. Who it was. So, you know, but he got a good chuckle out of it. It was a good prank. There were times where he got me a couple of times. One was I was at the hotel, and I get a call in my room about 2:30 in the morning, allegedly from the front desk, saying that my credit card had been declined. So I said, "What do you mean it's been declined?" And I'm like, "Okay." So I'm coming down to the front desk. I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. And I said, "So apparently somebody called me from the front desk saying and the guy looked confused. He said, "No, nobody called you from." So, you know, I turned around. I said, "Okay." And here come filing a bunch of other guys filing down to the front desk. And then there's Owen sitting in the corner chuckling. And we go, "Okay, we all got. There we go." And of course, in the ring, my goodness. He I don't know how he managed to do it. He untied my sneaker, my shoelace during a match. And I still to this day, he did just say, "Jimmy, your shoe's untied." Okay. And he'd be laughing. I said, "How did he do that? I didn't even see it." Yeah. Oh, real quick story here too. Tag team match, him and Jeff Jarrett against Edge and Christian. It was in Germany, actually. I want to say Oberhausen, but I'm not exactly sure which town, but we were in Germany. So they're having this match, and Owen's in the ring, and he's doing his ha-ha and his fun stuff where he's got Edge laid out. He's about to do a splash in the corner, so he does a bottom rope splash on his ankles and covers his ankles. And he's going, count, count. So his shoulders are down, I'm counting, and Edge barely kicks out like he's just having a lot of fun. And then they're using the foreign object where they keep hiding it from me and passing it back and forth, and I keep getting distracted. So it finally comes to the time where I catch him. He's got it tucked under his arm, and I get, raise your arm. I want to see what you got there. And he won't raise his arm, and I do the count on him to make him raise it. He lifts his arm. It's a napkin floating down. And I'm doing everything I can to keep it in. I want to burst out laughing, and I'm picking it up, doing the old, were you using this? Were you using this? And oh my goodness. But then they cap it off. Big babyface comeback. They go into a 4-way. They've got the heels in the corner, and they cut up on the second rope. They're about to do the 10 punches. And as they look to the crowd, Edge and Christian look to the crowd and start waving like this, like they're looking for the acknowledgement of the crowd. They reach in their trunks, they pull out those, those foam rubber red noses.
Yeah.
And they're wearing them like this, looking up like that. And before they turn around to do the 10 punches, they couldn't hold it. But they did the 10 punches afterwards. The noses flew off. I picked them up. I still have them to this day. I have them. That's a memento for me. That's a souvenir. I still got them.
It's amazing, like what you could see at house shows as well, because they could the talent could deviate, couldn't they, from storyline a little bit. Like I saw stuff with Kurt Angle and Undertaker, and after the match, he's trying to wind Undertaker up, like trying to do stuff. But the stuff that you didn't see on TV, you saw it. They could pull back the curtain a little bit more on the house shows, couldn't they? You got to see. Yeah. You got to see a little bit more than what you were used to seeing on the TV.
Oh, they had fun, but that was the time where you either both had fun and also tried stuff out in front of an audience to see what works, what didn't work, what got a response, and that sort of thing. And unfortunately, nowadays, with certain companies with it, don't get enough reps in front of a live audience without a TV camera present. They can't experiment that way to see what works and what doesn't work and what's resonating. So, it is hard to be on the road that many days, but getting the repetitions in and getting hardened, because it also, I know this sounds weird to a lot of people. I know you'll get it, Sui, but being in the ring more often helps your body get adjusted to taking the bumps daily on a daily basis. Yes, they do hurt. You feel them, but if you take them only once a week or twice a week, it hurts even more. If you get my drift.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jimmy, we're closing out now, but I have got another comment for you. So I will. This one's come from YouTube. It's come from Pyrrhus Wrestling or Pyrrhus Wrestling, however you pronounce it. Question: will Reffin It Up bring current WWE superstars in the future? I have 3 in mind for the pod, if you don't mind. I think he's saying there. So yeah, just have you got any current WWE stars that you could get?
Well, we obviously with WWE, you have to go through the proper channels to secure talent, and we've reached out and we've got some some ideas and some thoughts. We put out some feelers out there, and hopefully in the future we'll get them on the podcast. And again, having some fun, telling some old stories and stuff.
Pyrrhus, keep your eyes peeled for that in audio form, because obviously you can get Reffin It Up on Spotify, Apple, all the podcast apps. Are you on YouTube with it, Jimmy?
I'm sorry?
Can people watch on YouTube of Reffin It Up, or is it all in audio form?
Right now it's all in audio form.
Okay.
Who knows? In the future it may move to video, but I also do some stuff with Wrestling Inc. So I do the post Monday Raw review and post Wednesday Dynamite review on Wrestling Inc. And that one's on YouTube. You can find that one on YouTube on the Wrestling Inc. channel. So who knows? Maybe Reffin It Up will join the YouTube world.
Yes. Yeah, we look forward to that. We look forward to that. Pyrrhus again, he's got Karrion Kross at number 1. He's got Shotzi Blackheart at 2, and he's got MVP at 3.
MVP, my man. Yes. I would switch that around. I'd flip-flop, maybe move MVP to the front for me anyways.
Okay. Yeah, there you go, Pyrrhus. Thank you for sending all your questions into Jimmy. Fantastic. Jimmy, just plugging away now. You're on Cameo. I know you like to plug the Cameo. So, yeah, just where people can find you on Cameo, firstly.
Yeah, you can find me on Cameo, and it's easy to find at Jimmy Korderas. Everything is at Jimmy Korderas, except for Instagram is at Real Jimmy Korderas, because apparently somebody else used it. I don't know who, but yeah, that's all my social media platforms. You can find me doing my Reffin rants every day from Monday to Wednesday. They're not very long. They're only about a little over a minute long. And again, not to tear down, little critiques to help tighten the screws and hopefully help people elevate the business. And again, like I said, Reffin It Up Podcast with my good brother in stripes, Brian Hebnaler, and RJ, who holds the glue together for us, doing an awesome job. And on Wrestling Inc. on Monday nights, usually with Triple J, with Justin LaBar and Jack Farmer. You can catch us talking Raw and all the latest news. And Wednesday nights, usually again with Jack and whoever the third host may be sitting in the third seat. We talk Dynamite and again, give honest critique. And honest, we put over what we believe needs to be put over, and we also critique what we believe needs to be critiqued. And we're honest. That's what it is. It's about being honest, and it's not about, like I said, being negative about the product, hoping that it all gets better. Because every promotion out there can get better. There isn't one that's like knocking it out of the park every time they're out there.
Absolutely. My guest today, all the way from Toronto in Canada, it's former WWE referee, co-host of the Reffin It Up Podcast with Brian Hebnaler, which we've spoken about. It's Mr. Jimmy Korderas, who's been on Stu's Wrestling Podcast for episode 176. Jimmy, thank you so much for sparing the time and coming on. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you asking. Thank you. I appreciate you, Stewie. Great job on your podcast there, and congratulations, 176. That's a big deal, man. And keep it going. It's awesome.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. Appreciate it. All the best. Thank you, Jimmy.